What's up, everybody? Jerryniesman at the Niesman team at Keller Williams Realty here, and this is my buddy Doug. Y'all have seen him before, Doug Breitfelder, also with the Niesman team, and we're here to have a little conversation and give you some insight into some of the interesting topics in going on in Fort Myers. Today, we are going to talk about and potentially have a little debate here in regards to a recently published news article that we saw. I came across about a week ago that we'll share with you here in a second, where city planners for the city of Fort Myers are talking about plans to turn Fort Myers into a 15-minute city. Many of you may not really know what that means.
I didn't.
You didn't know what it meant?
I had no idea.
I had to explain it to you.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting topic because Rachel and I were talking about it. For those of you that don't know my wife, Rachel, we were talking about it and how nice it would be. We thought if we had more of this here in the United States. We do a ton of traveling. We visit countries, we travel all over the world. And we've noticed in a lot of cities, a lot of things that just kind of the city planning and the infrastructure is set up differently in lots of other parts of the world than what we have here in the US. Some of our bigger cities are kind of set up that way, but even they are not necessarily, in our minds, as well done. Obviously, a lot of people here in the States think that they're done well. Otherwise, they wouldn't keep building them this way, I guess. But so we're going to talk a little bit about the whole 15-minute city concept, what that looks like. And it's funny because it's in city planning here in the States. It's like this new revolutionary concept. But when Doug and I were talking about it, I'm like, I don't feel like it's that new.
No, I mean, I lived in Korea, in Busan, South Korea, for almost 4 years. And that's how the whole cities are laid out. I mean, it's a very big city. In 15 minutes, you can walk pretty much anywhere and get whatever you need.
Yeah. So basically, for those that aren't familiar with it, the concept is that you have the ability to do all of your shopping, all of, basically everything that you need, your normal day-to-day errands, running around, that sort of thing, that you can do it within a 15-minute walk or bike ride. And, in theory, it is better for us health-wise because we get more exercise if we're walking instead of getting in our cars and driving.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess they kind of took this concept with most US cities, even medium and small cities, where it's a 15-minute city, but it's within a 15-minute car ride.
Right. I mean,
I get like that's kind of how Publix is set up. Like there's a Publix, you probably pass a Publix every 15 minutes, no matter what direction you drive in Fort Myers.
Right. I mean,
or in all of Southwest Florida.
The need for it, according to the article, was that, the population in Fort Myers has doubled.
Let's share the article real quick here. So here's the article NBC2 News put out about a week ago, last Wednesday, so 9 days ago.
Yep.
Talking about Fort Myers aiming to be a 15-minute city as the population increases. And they said, the population's doubled in the last 20 years. So a big draw is people are looking for a healthier environment, lots of outdoor options, and they're coming to places like Fort Myers and really all of Southwest Florida. I mean, that's a big draw here, is being able to be outdoors all year, not having to deal with the cold in the winter and the snow and ice and all that you deal with a lot up north and in the Midwest. So people coming here, and they're talking about 91 active development projects just within the Fort Myers city limits. And for those that don't know, like a lot of people think Fort Myers is pretty big.
It's tiny.
Fort Myers is not that big. Like the Fort Myers address area is very big, but it is not the actual city limits of Fort Myers is actually quite small.
Yeah, I think you go past 4th Street and you're outside of the city already.
Yeah, it's really funky shaped, and there's like little fingers that stick out here and stick out there in all these different directions. So it's not like there's not like a circle drawn around anything or any, it's a little funky, but it's not big. So 91 active development projects in the Fort Myers city limits is a lot.
Yes.
So, and they said the majority of them are higher density multifamily housing, which we need. I mean, the reality is, if you want people to have access to your typical, the infrastructure that's already there, whether it be shopping or buses or, the parks and things like that, you need denser housing than what most of Fort Myers is set up as. I mean, the majority of Fort Myers address area is single family homes. And even when you're talking these gated communities where they're smaller than quarter-acre lots, that's not dense compared to most cities. It's very spread out. You lose that walkability very, very quickly. And so that's what they're talking about, adding a little bit of density. So
the problem that I see with this is you're taking what happened in Europe and what happened in Asia and other places that have been around since the 1200s, right? And they built these giant cities. And so they needed a butcher on every block because not everybody had a horse and buggy.
sure.
Okay. So then they started to spread out in that manner. Whereas in America, we didn't start moving out of the cities and into the suburbs until well after the automobile was established. And so we were saying, okay, well, what do we need out in these suburbs? Let's put a giant supermarket right there. Okay, smart man figured it out. You don't have to go to 14 different shops. It's all one stop right there. And the only reason you need to go into the city is to work. And it's safer outside of the city. So now we're trying to deconstruct that and put it back into an old family style of the butcher, the baker, the
candlestick maker.
The candlestick maker, legitimately right there. And what are you going to do with all the established buildings that are already there in downtown Fort Myers? Now, right now, the only reason to go to Fort Myers is if you want to get a bite to eat or something to drink, because that's all there is. 30,000 restaurants and bars all stacked next to each other. And how are you going to pick the winners and losers of saying, no, we'll give tax breaks if you're this type of guy. Oh, and by the way, Publix, I need you to kind of go away because no one's going to go to a Publix because we want to put a butcher here. We want to put a bakery here, and we want to put all this stuff into this little area and kind of deconstruct what America has constructed over the last 60 years and turn it into what Europe and Asia constructed 500 years ago.
So I don't see anybody saying that Publix needs to go away. Publix has certain requirements on where they will put a store, and it's got to have a certain level of population. They've got to have a certain square footage for accessible for their building. And they have a Publix in downtown. It's not right in what everybody thinks of as downtown for the people that don't know downtown, but it is in between what everybody thinks of as downtown. I guess it's the official downtown. It's where City Hall is. It's the strip where all the restaurants and bars and stuff are. But you have a whole nother section of downtown, like over towards the Ford and Edison estates, where all of that down McGregor, and then there's the park on the way over there, and then you've got the Publix right there. And they're building new apartment complexes there. They're building new condos there. So that Publix, the only thing it's not within a 15-minute reach of is probably like the Oasis condos. A 15-minute walk.
Right.
Or maybe bike ride. Like it might be a 20-minute walk from Saint-Tropez and Riviera, the furthest east. So Oasis is the furthest east condo buildings currently in that strip, and then Saint-Tropez and Riviera are the next ones in. It's probably a 15-minute walk, maybe 20-minute walk from there.
Right.
But, we're talking ideally walking, but at least bike ride, that sort of thing. So my thing is, I don't think they're picking winners and losers. I don't feel like they're saying you can't be here, or I don't think there was anything mentioned about tax breaks or anything like that. Just specifically, now they might need something to attract the people to go there. I don't know. I mean, to me, they need more population there. And a lot of those buildings, it's funny because I've always said, like, I wonder what it's like living in one of these buildings, like the older buildings right in the downtown area where all the restaurants and bars are. There's a lot of older buildings there, and they're multi-story buildings, but all you ever go in, I mean, I've been here since 2010 as a realtor. I've never been in an upstairs of any one of those buildings.
No.
I've never seen one listed for sale. Is it all commercial space? Are there condos up above? I know some of them have condos up above. They never come up for sale, or they just get sold off market. But I've never been in them. I've been in San Tropez, I've been in Riviera, I've been in Oasis, I've been in I like drawn a blank on some of the other condo buildings. I've sold a bunch of those. But on both sides, in both sides of Centennial Park, over, like I said, over by closer to the Edison Estates and all that. There's some other high-rise condo buildings over there. Sold some of those, been in them. But the stuff right in downtown, I've never been in. I've never seen one for sale.
Well, let's look at this next line here. One of the things I found in cities I've worked in that makes downtown appealing is I don't have to go outside of the downtown for, say, a grocery store or a gas station or a dry cleaners. We really want to make this a 15-minute city. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So where are you going to entice these companies or these small mom and pop shops? Because that's what you're talking about here with the dry cleaners and and stuff like that. Where are you going to entice these people to come in and set up shop to make this 15-minute city a reality?
So there's room in there. There's room downtown.
You just said nothing has ever come up for sale.
No, I said the upstairs stuff. The upstairs stuff. I've been in all kinds of downstairs, first floors of all these buildings, and there's available space in them. So there is some available space downtown to be able to do these things. There's also vacant land downtown where new buildings could be built that could be multifunctional buildings. They could be, multi-purpose zoning for both commercial on the first floor and then residential up above.
There is a space for that. The old Robin Stuckey building. I just know that it still has the old name Robin Stuckey on it. I think it was one of the original furniture stores right there in downtown. And on the bottom, I think there's some lawyers in there, but nothing in the second and third floor that I've ever seen.
Well, there's the haunted building too, that huge haunted building that has there's a nightclub in the first floor, the one right on the square.
Yeah.
That they say is haunted, and you've got the speakeasy in it. In the backside, you've got a nightclub on the street side, and right next to D Hop.
Yeah.
And but up above has never been anything. Supposedly it's haunted. Supposedly every time somebody goes in there and does starts to do work, they get freaked out and run out and leave. So I don't know. That's the we took one of we took the ghost tour.
But I'd like
downtown Fort Myers, and that's what they said.
I like to see the guy that's going to go in and put a dry cleaner up on the second and third floor of the building and tell people to carry your laundry up to the second and third floor lofts here and try and do it. You have to be able to entice them. And the only way that you're going to entice
them. First floor of that building for the dry cleaners. That's what I'm saying. There's room in a lot of these buildings on the first floors for commercial space. And then the upper floors need to be what I'm saying is there's not a lot of full-time population living in that area because a lot of those spaces up above are not actually developed and being used. So we need to, what I would like to see And I feel like that would help support those businesses and draw those businesses if there was more like actual population living there. So, I mean, there's lots of people living around the area in the single family homes and in the big high rise condo buildings. But what about the rest of those buildings downtown there? And there's not a gas station downtown anywhere. The one gas station that was there got shut down. But I mean, you've got some of it already there. You've got some banks there. You've got, you have the Publix, but you don't really have, other than like a couple ice cream shops, which, yeah, I mean, mad props to them. I don't know how you got like 5 ice cream shops within within a 3-minute walk of each other. I'm impressed that they're all managing to be successful. But, I mean, why is nobody doing anything else? Why is there no little bakery there? Why is there no?
Because of my almost 50 years of being on this earth, I don't think I've ever walked into
There's multiple
a
barbershops.
bakery.
You've never walked into a bakery?
I don't think I ever have.
We walked into like every bakery in Paris.
Because you didn't have a Publix nearby. And that's what I'm saying. You have to deconstruct how America was built and why it was built the way that it was to reconstruct the reason why the smaller buildings and the smaller shops still exist in Europe and in other places. It's because of necessity.
But not really. I mean, they have the big grocery stores there too. I mean,
they're pretty far outside the city.
No, when I was just in the Netherlands, and they had, I wouldn't say big grocery stores because they can't, like, they don't have the buildings.
They don't have the space.
They don't have the buildings, but they did have the bigger chain grocery stores, like their version of a Publix, and they had everything. And there were a lot of people going there, but there was also a line outside the bakery right around the corner from it. And there was people at the butcher shop, and there was people at the candlestick maker. Like all of the stores had that. And they had like almost like a little Walgreens type place where they didn't necessarily like, yeah, you could get like your shelf stable foods like bags of chips and
Spam,
Pringles and Spam, and they had a little cooler section with drinks, but they had like like makeup and Advil, and like I went in there to get gloves because it was cold and I didn't bring any gloves. So, but like we went in there and there was all the other little stuff. But they had larger grocery stores there too. They had both. And the population supported both. Because
500 years of doing things a certain way
and
is not going to be erased. Whereas on this side of the pond, you're going to try and erase the way that we've been doing things to kind of regress into, because I think Americans, by and large, we work way more hours than the typical European does. We do things in a certain way
but maybe we shouldn't.
But we do. But we do.
That's a whole nother topic.
That's a whole nother topic. And what I'm saying is when you're done with everything, you want your one-stop shop to take care of as much as you can so that you can go home and get ready for the next day.
Sometimes. And sometimes maybe you want better quality.
That's true. Quality goes completely out the window with the American system.
Sometimes you want better quality stuff and you're willing to go stand in a line at a bakery to get fresh bread instead of your
frozen, warm it up in the microwave.
Right. So, what I'm saying is I feel like there's room for both. I'm not saying we need to completely change what everybody in America does. All I'm saying is, there can be more to downtown than just a bunch of restaurants and bars.
I totally agree. And I'd like to see it happen. And it looks like we're going to find out in the next 3 to 5 years. They're saying there's going to be a lot of changes to downtown Fort Myers. So if you haven't been to downtown Fort Myers in a while, If you're from up north and you haven't vacationed down here, the next 3 to 5 years, it may look completely different than what you've ever seen before.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see what it looks like. I mean, I think anything that adds more variety to what is there will be great. And I mean, we have examples of this all over the area. I feel like it's easier to do in new developments. So for example,
Absolutely.
I mean, we're seeing it like Babcock Ranch that they're developing right now is really set up kind of with this concept in mind, where they've got a central town center and a bunch of little neighborhoods, and they're actually doing it in a way density wise that is mostly single family. But what they have to do in order to deal with that is it is the typical gated communities, so they are smaller lots, and they're developing them around the town center concept. And because it's getting to the point now where it's grown so much that some of the neighborhoods are getting to the point where they are outside of that 15-minute accessibility to the town center, they're starting town center number 2.
Yeah.
And they're doing it in a way that they're also incorporating. There's a Publix that just opened there, 6-8 months ago or year ago or whatever it was. And now there's your typical, there's like a Subway in there and a pizza joint in like the strip mall around the Publix. So they've developed that now. And, yeah, you're going to take your car there because you're going grocery shopping to the Publix and you're going to buy, probably a week's worth of groceries, right, instead of, 3 bags that you're going to carry on your arm.
Right.
But if you just need something quick and you want to go get a little exercise and go out for a walk in the evening, you can go to the little outpost store in the town center and get the necessities there as well.
Which is why there are 3 or 5 ice cream shops that are finding a way to stay open with all the other competition around them in downtown Fort Myers. People love their ice cream.
Oh yeah, I don't blame them. It's good ice cream, especially there's 2 places downtown that have Love Boat.
Yeah,
out of the 5,
at least 2.
But yeah, so like you got examples like Babcock Ranch, you got Lakewood Ranch, which was developed even longer ago and is really built out now. They're still building a ton in there, but as it expands, they're just adding additional little town centers throughout the area. Every time they get to the point where it's like, oh, it's getting a little bit, more than the 15-20 minute window from some of these properties into the town center. We see the same thing down in Naples. They did it with the Mercado. Mercado is mostly like, that's a smaller scale version of it. Pretty much all condos.
Right.
But you can do it in multiple ways. And so the question is, can they figure out how to incorporate that into an existing setup that's been there really since the early 1900s now, and has kind of was that way initially, of course, because in the 1920s, the cars were not a big thing, although, Henry Ford lived right down the street. So there were definitely some cars, but, it started out that way, has gone away from that into an almost completely defunct downtown. And now they've brought it back again. But the way they've brought it back is primarily all restaurants and bars. And so I feel like they just need to incorporate some variety and other things into it. And so I think this is a great idea. It'll be interesting to see how they make it work and how they use some of the vacant land that's there, to build new buildings. And also, what do they do with the infrastructure in terms of, making it pedestrian and maybe bike friendly, where that's another thing here in the States is like, it's sometimes kind of dangerous to walk down the street
or bike down the street
because you got, so many cars driving around and, and people on their cell phones and all that. And the pedestrians are just as bad.
Right.
I mean, I do it all the time. I'm walking around looking at my phone, texting, working, talking, walking down the street, and so people walk out in the middle of the road without looking, just like people might be driving down the road while they're looking at their phone, not paying attention. And it's recipe for disaster.
And not to mention the two main bridges to get out of Fort Myers and into North Fort Myers and Cape Coral are right there in downtown. And so
Yeah.
these are people just trying to either get to work or get home from work, and they're not paying attention. They just want to get home.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of traffic that flows through there that, you know, maybe they don't want to be in downtown.
Right.
They're just
trying to
driving
get
through
Yeah.
in order to get out of the city.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how they incorporate all of that and figure out ways to make it work, use the land that they've got, use the existing buildings that they've got, and, you know, figure out how to fit all this in, as well as, you know, safety and walkability and bikeability and all that, while continuing to keep the, you know, the car traffic flowing too.
That's right.
So, got anything else you want to add on this?
No, I think it'll be interesting to see if it works and if it actually pans out in the way that they're planning on doing it. That's to me, what I always thought was interesting is they say, oh, we're going to build this thing and it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And then at the end of the day, 3 Subways and a Starbucks pop up on the corner and they call it the grand transformation. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to take that vision and turn it into reality, and whether or not the population will support it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It will be interesting. I mean, there's been lots of, you know, I mean, every city goes through the situation where it's like, oh, you know, somebody's got this great idea, you know, they tab it as a great idea, but then you know, the people don't necessarily support it, or you know, it also requires, if you got to build more buildings and do things, there's got to be it's not like the city is building homes or condo buildings. They've got to find the developers that are willing to build these things and that see a business model in it too. So, you know, ideally a productive, successful business model in it.
Yeah.
You know, which is also something that they've got to deal with and battle on. So it'll be interesting to see. I like the theory and the concept of it. You know, I hope it works.
It'll be interesting to see. I'm not saying I don't hope it works. I'm saying I don't know if it will. And I like to be proven wrong. So go for it.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hit us up if you got any questions. And as always, if we can help with buying or selling, investing in real estate, give us a shout.